Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming to our Zoom presentation on funding opportunities with Phi Kappa Phi. And I have some colleagues and members of the executive board here. Emily Sally works with me in nationally competitive awards, and Matthew and Kaylee and Haley are the student vice presidents for Phi Kappa Phi. And Savina is working with the Children's Center and helping us offer today's session. We did this last year as well, and one of the things that we want I should introduce myself. Why do I always skip that step? I'm Pat Whitlow. I work as the Director of Nationally Competitive Awards, and I'm also the President of Phi Kappa Phi. So welcome and thank you again for attending. We are recording this session. I should mention that to all of you. And Phi Kappa Phi offers a lot of money. I mean, this is one of the reasons why we believe in it as an organization and an honorary, is because we think it gives a lot back to its members. There are leadership opportunities, there are opportunities to attend conferences, and there is scholarship funding, both for undergraduate students and graduate students, and post-baccalaureate opportunities that don't necessarily have to do with being in a degree program. So we're going to talk about some of these options today, and then Matthew is going to speak about the fellowship that he received from Phi Kappa Phi. And so I think that we have relatively few people in the Zoom at this time or in the presentation, so I hope that you would feel very comfortable speaking up and asking questions. We'll try to leave time for that, but I think when we're a small group, it's fine to unmute yourself and ask a question. And I think I am the person who can. So there's a lot of money at stake, and I think for those of you who are members of Phi Kappa Phi, I do think this is one of your important benefits, as I said, and I hope you will take advantage of it, because I think there are several different opportunities, and it's one of the ways that you can really feel like you've made the most of being in an honorary. This is a picture of a previous executive board, and this is when they were doing service with Ashland Terrace, which is a nursing home that is just off campus. And one of the things that to complement all of the students that have been involved with Phi Kappa Phi is they have run wonderful service projects over the last several years and been very active in that way. You can see a list of some of the funding opportunities, and we will talk about them individually. I won't go into tremendous detail on any one of them. We'll give you a little more discussion of the graduate fellowship because of Matthew's role in applying and receiving that. But we just want to make you aware of the other opportunities. And so I don't know, are any of the people on the call currently in graduate school? I don't know that we have anyone who is at the doctoral candidate stage, but the wonderful thing about this, and this is why you have to keep it in mind, is this Phi Kappa Phi carries with you. So even though you might leave UK, you were inducted here, and you leave UK and you're in a doctoral program at some other institution, you're still eligible to apply for these dissertation fellowships. And you can move your membership to that institution where you are in your graduate program. You don't have to. You can still participate with their chapter, but you can apply for a dissertation fellowship. So this is something you just kind of have to put in the back of your mind to be available, because I think that it probably doesn't get claimed as often as it could, because people just forget that they have an option for that. There's also a graduate research grant for people who are in graduate school, and that will help with research. And so, you know, it's a lesser amount of money, but sometimes when you're in graduate school, any of these opportunities are very, very useful to your work. The Literacy Award, these are for chapters or individual to fund ongoing literacy projects. And we have actually received a couple of these for our chapter. I don't think we have a slide in here this time about the various grants that we have won, and we should have done that. We've done it for other events, but we have received this. And this is oftentimes for people who are working with perhaps a nonprofit and they want to get a grant and then do some project with something they're involved in. So that is something that you can think about at any point in time in your membership of Phi Kappa Phi. You can see this Love of Learning Award. That is after you graduate or after you've completed your undergraduate studies. It can be involved in any other stage, including continuing education. So you don't necessarily have to be pursuing a degree or a credential. I want to highlight the study abroad grant because you don't have to be a Phi Kappa Phi member. So maybe even if all the people on the call are Phi Kappa Phi members, you might have friends that you know are going to be applying for study abroad programs, and you could make them aware of this because it's open to any UK student. And so it would be a wonderful opportunity to get the $1,000, and that's a nice amount to defray your study abroad costs. And we have had UK students receive this in the past as well. But it's important that we get the word out because of the deadline being in March. And maybe some students are just now starting to think about their plans and what they are able to do. I do believe it has to be for an academic study program during the next academic year. I am not sure it applies to summer, but we can check on that. The graduate fellowship. I've moved fairly quickly through these applications. I haven't spent a lot of time on them. Matthew's going to talk a little bit more about the fellowship so that you get a sense of some of the material that might be required for the study abroad fellowship. It's less detailed than this. So some of them don't require the writing sample, for example. So, but if you chose to apply for one of these awards, both Emily and I are glad to help you through competitive awards to help you understand what the application requires to read your personal statement or your essay. We'd be delighted to give you some feedback if you need that. And what I'd like to do now, before I talk a lot about the fellowship, is to let Matthew talk about it because he has experience of actually receiving the check. And so we were really delighted for him. And actually, we have had a number of Phi Kappa Phi recipients of this particular fellowship, Matthew being the most recent. So we have, our chapter has done an excellent job at getting our students to this fellowship stage. So I want you to know that it's very achievable, and Matthew will talk about that as well. Thank you, Matthew.
Yeah, no problem, Dr. Whitlow. So I did get the study abroad or the graduate fellowship grant in the year of 2020 before I started medical school here at UK. And it's a super simple application. It took me maybe 2 hours to really work on, and then I had several people look over it afterwards just to kind of edit my essay and responses. But it's not a very hefty application at all. And I was lucky enough to get one of the $8,500 fellowships. But then, as you see here, there are also 6 $20,000 fellowships and 2 $35,000 fellowships. So they're giving away a lot of money. And considering that they're giving out 54 different fellowships and only one person is allowed to apply from each chapter at a university, there's a pretty good chance that you're able to get one of these because there's about 300 chapters in the US, and not all of them are active, and not all of them are going to be sending in applicants each year. And of course, we work with the nationally competitive awards. Dr. Whitlow and everyone in there will be able to look at your applications and help you out. And then if there's more than one person that applies from our chapter, they will look at those and send in whoever they believe will be the strongest applicant out of that group. You do have to be an active member in Phi Kappa Phi to be able to actually apply, and that's at the date of receipt. And so you won't receive it until the summer before you would start your graduate or professional school. And so you want to make sure that your chapter membership is active whenever you're graduating from undergrad.
And an active membership would require paying the dues. Isn't that correct, Matthew?
Correct. So most people do a 1 or 2 year dues. And if you are joining at the beginning of your junior year, if you did a 1 year, that would mean it's expired during your senior year. But if you did a 2 year membership, which is just a little bit more expensive, then you're able to be active whenever you're graduating and would be starting that graduate professional school. If you start directly after, I do believe that if you're taking a year off, I know a lot of people take a year off between graduate or professional school, they can hold that for 1 year. That's something that I remember seeing. And so as they showed here, for the graduate fellowship, you have to supply your transcripts, any honors and rewards, and relevant research experience. And all of that is just written, typed out in an essay form. And then you can provide your service and leadership experience, both on and off campus. And that can be Phi Kappa Phi or not Phi Kappa Phi related. I believe that you were able to do 2 letters of recommendation. And then you provided a personal statement and goals and a work sample. For me, as a science major, a work sample was really difficult because we don't write things that are literature. And so it was really weird for me to find something. I ended up submitting my capstone, which was actually a lot bigger than what was necessary. And so I had to cut it down a lot. It was a pretty small sample. And I guess that worked out. And then they want to know where you're planning on going to school. And then if you receive this scholarship, then they want to know that you have been accepted to that school and that you're going to be going there. And some standardized test scores. So for example, if you're going to medical school, it would be an MCAT, or if you're going to graduate school, I believe they take the GRE. Is that right, Dr. Whitlow? Is graduate school programs, most of those. And so whatever standardized test you're taking for acceptance into your program is acceptable. On the personal statement, they just ask you to describe your educational and career goals and some personal factors that influenced your decision to pursue whatever study that you have decided to do. And that's just in an essay form.
I was going to speak and I'm muted. This is something where I think that we can really help you in that we can only nominate one student, and we usually have more than one application, but we can give you feedback because we would provide the same help to all applicants in this pool. So we can give you some feedback on your statement if you want. And then also when the person is selected for the fellowship, the nominee is selected, we also give some feedback from the review committee to say there's a little bit of time between when we select the nominee and before we have to submit all of the final documents. And so we have a little time for the fellowship nominee to go back and look at some of the feedback they receive and make changes if they like. So there is an opportunity for you to have to strengthen your application through the process.
I'll also add that being involved in Phi Kappa Phi obviously will be a positive factor for applying to this, not only at the UK level, whenever it's being read by Dr. Whitlow and the committee that looks at that, but also at the national level. They have chapter presidents all across the nation that are applying to these. And so if you're one of the main involved people at your campus, then you're definitely going to have a stronger application chance than someone that hasn't been as involved in Phi Kappa Phi. I personally believe that, just because I'm also on the National Student Council, and I know that whenever we're looking at people's applications, we're not only the fellowship, but other national awards, that whenever someone wasn't involved at the regional level at their own campus, they kind of frowned on that. They were applying for something that they were never involved in really. So if you are wanting to apply to this type of thing in the future, I just recommend trying to get involved. Reach out to Dr. Whitlow or I. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to be as involved this year as I have in the couple years past, but just talking to someone so that you can at least know what events are going on and try to be in the know of what's happening and be involved in that.
I should mention that Matthew is in medical school. I don't know if I said that at the beginning, so his time is getting more limited. I will also mention that if there are students on the call or students who watch this who would want to run for the vice presidency next year for the chapter, I think Kaylee or Haley or Matthew would all be willing to return an email and talk about their experience. I think Matthew's been involved for the longest time and had an opportunity to attend a national conference, and given the state of the world the last few years, I don't think that's been an option for Kaylee and Haley. So, but there are ways to be involved even beyond the scholarships, and we encourage students to do that and chapter members to do that. But I definitely encourage you strongly to think about the funding and where it might fit into your future graduate study plans. There is a website that talks about this in more detail and has the application process online. And this one is talking about the fellowship specifically and how you would submit it. So if you are a senior and applying to, we say the graduate fellowship, it is also for professional programs. Matthew applied it to his medical school tuition, a law student could apply it, so any professional or graduate program. But if you would submit to Emily by March 15th, then we will select, I can't actually see the date, but I believe it's March 25th. And then we have to have you submitted by April 15th so that you can see there's time in there for you to relook and revise your application for the fellowship. So, but on that awards page, you can also apply for the other awards. They're in a list. So if you wanted to apply, for example, for the study abroad that we mentioned earlier. And I did see that Emily put a note in the chat that you do need to apply for a study abroad program during the next academic year, that it's not a summer for this summer. I realize a lot of people are looking for summer school funding right now. And I believe, yeah, let me go back. So are there questions from any of the individuals on the call, or even for our student vice presidents? Are there any questions you think that we should answer now for someone who wants to look at this at a later time?
I just wanted to ask a question just to clarify what you just said. So Emily said that if the study abroad program must begin between May the 1st, 22 and June the 30th, 23 to be eligible. So does that not include summer school?
Okay, well, maybe it does include summer school. Thank you for looking at that. I thought I read that it was fall. That's what I get for looking at it so quickly. I thought it was for next academic year. So it actually goes through the summer. Okay, so that's good to know.
The end of this academic year into the end of the next academic year.
Okay, wonderful. So you could put it toward a summer award. I think the difficulty might be when you actually receive the funding, and I don't know exactly when you get it, but that could be a little late. But that's great to know then. So you could use it for a study abroad in the summer or the next academic year. Thank you, Matthew, for the correction. Any comments from Kaylee or Haley? We have another little bit of business after that, but I just want to let the students comment.
I wanted to mention that I know there's a workshop coming up with the Office of Nationally Competitive Awards and the Office of Undergraduate Research about personal statements. So that could be helpful if you wanted to attend that. I think it's February 15th.
Thank you. Yes, we are going to do a session talking about personal statements, and it is, I think, specifically geared at some STEM awards, I think, is what the Office of Undergraduate Research is hoping that we'll talk about. But I think a lot of the advice is going to be very similar regardless. And I would also be happy to answer any questions or give specifics for a student who was coming out of a non-STEM field that wanted some more advice on a personal statement. Thank you, Kaylee. Else, I know that Savina has an announcement to make if we have concluded the part talking about awards.
Okay. Well, thank you all for being here. First of all, for attending, this is PKP National Week. So in a way to kind of get the PKP spirit up on UK's campus, we will be having a giveaway in 224 Funkhauser this week. If you would like the information, just so you don't have to write it down right now, I will be happy to email it. It will be pass out on Tuesday and Thursday this week from 9 to 11 a.m. But if you don't want to write that down, that will be 224 Funkhauser. Please put your email in the chat and I will send a follow-up email tomorrow where you can come pick up PKP lanyards and phone backers where you can put your credit card and probably some snacks.
And before we conclude, do the students on the call, I know we only have a couple of you and I don't want to put you on the spot, but if you did have a question, we would be happy to try and answer it here. Or you could put it in the chat if you did not want to unmute.
I actually have a question.
Thank you, Eric.
So I'm a junior right now, and I'm a business, I'm finance management. So I would pursue an MBA probably. Typically at a lot of universities, not specifically UK, you have to wait 2 years post graduation. They like to see work experience. So how would that factor in? And would an MBA even apply to these fellowship opportunities?
So I do know for a fact that an MBA does count because it's a master's program. However, you have to be 1 year since the time that you have applied for it. So they only, I guess, allot 1 year between whenever you're graduating from undergrad and whenever you're starting your new program. And so I believe that 2 years would be too far for that. If for some reason, let's say you have already been accepted into your MBA program and have set a date that you'd be starting in 2024, my goodness, then it would be possible that you could reach out to the national organization and see what they would say if they could provide an exemption for that. But as of how the rules stand now, you would not be eligible for that.
So
It would never pay it out.
So like there are several universities that offer the like deferred admissions. So you can be admitted and then they give you the opportunity to attend 2 to 4 years after you're admitted. So would that qualify for
The problem is that they don't know if you're going to go. And so you could decide not to go in 2 years and then they didn't get to give that money to somebody else that could have applied for that opportunity. And so they just try to be as fair as possible and keep it at the 1 year, because most people that are going to take 1 year off hopefully will go back in 1 year. So that's just the rule that they have set up, like I said.
In general, Eric, just a lot of funding organizations have to spend, the money that they have has to be spent in the calendar year of the award. So I think that you will find that frequently what will happen is you could defer graduate school admissions and MBA school admissions, but you won't be able to defer the funding. Let's say you got funding in other places. Now, that doesn't mean you wouldn't be equally competitive to apply again another year for those. And I talk with students about that. In this particular case, it doesn't sound like it would be feasible with Phi Kappa Phi. There might be some other funding options, but I suspect it will be the very rare scholarship or fellowship opportunity that would let you defer 2 or 4 years. Their budgets just aren't set up in that way.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Other questions? Thank you all for joining in this call this evening. We really appreciate it, and I hope that you will continue to be active with Phi Kappa Phi. Thank you very much, Matthew, for giving us information on your fellowship.
No problem. You guys have a great day.